Returning now to that earlier story, former Home Affairs Chief Mike Pezzullo is warning a revitalised Islamic State is seeking to exploit anger over Palestine in Muslim communities. As fears grow, the terror group is on the cusp of a second global wave of carnage after a US terror attack killed 15 people. It comes as the coalition warns Labor's migration policies could open Australia to similar vulnerabilities as the US. Joining me is former Speaker of the House Bronwyn Bishop and Sky News contributor Rocco Loiacono. Thank you to both of you for joining me. Good to see you. Bronwyn, we'll start with you. We know that almost 3,000 Palestinians have been granted entry to Australia since the October 7 attack, with little to no security vetting. How can we be sure that who we are letting in is safe?
Well, Danica, very simply, we can't. And I think we have to see it against two things. Firstly, that atrocious, vile, brutal, vicious attack by invading Israel by Hamas on the 7th of October was designed to ensure that there would be a response from Israel. And there was nothing that grew out of that reaction of Israel. It was planned, and there were cells, obviously, all around the world, including here in Sydney, where we saw that demonstration at the Opera House before Israel had responded at all. And so we know that there is a concerted effort of disruption of the peace of countries all around the world and firing up with anti-Semitism. So against that background, to have a Labor government here allow 3,000 people from that area to come to Australia without proper checks puts us all at risk. And the reason it was done was to appease the Muslim voters in the electorates of particularly Labor ministers. Now, that is a government that is simply abrogating its responsibility to the Australian people, and Mike Pezzullo is quite right to point out that there is added danger for us.
Yeah, it's basically selling out our values for votes, and it is a disgrace. Yes. Rocco, is Labor taking the threat of Islamic extremism seriously enough in your view?
Well, based on what we've seen so far, it leaves a lot to be desired. We've seen this half-hearted condemnation of Islamic preachers who've been rejoicing over October 7. As Bronwyn indicated, we've got this Labor government which has abandoned decades of bipartisanship on Israel by abandoning Israel at the UN again to appease domestic voters. And maybe because this Labor government doesn't actually believe, unlike Bob Hawke, who said very clearly that the commitment to Australia meant that it doesn't matter where you came from, you were committed to our values, as you mentioned earlier, which are the rule of law, parliamentary democracy, English as the national language, and tolerance.